So last week, the Bank of Canada surprisingly only raised the rates by 0.5% instead of 0.75%. Now, this could be a hint that we're about to see a slowdown or even a plateau in interest rate hike come 2023. However, during these times, we need to be extra cautious and on guard regarding our finances, because if interest rate and by extent maybe inflation were to slow down, this could also hint that recession is right around the corner. So in order to avoid being stuck in a position where we're facing still a higher inflation or interest rate and also potential layoff coming around the corner, in this video I'll be sharing 7 different items that if you haven't done them already, you should start considering or do researches on so that you can make sure you're put into the best position possible going into a potential recession. Now, before we start, as always, if you haven't already, help us hit the like button, because our YouTube algorithm is super difficult right now. If you don't help us hit the like, it's not going to be promoted to more people. And also make sure you join our free private Facebook group where you can ask more questions inside. The link to join is in the description below. All right, without further ado, let's jump into today's video. So first, I'm going to start off with the debt side, and my first tip is going to be look to consolidate all your debts if you haven't already. Now, in general, this is just good financial planning steps or advice or the basics of financial planning. If you have high interest rate loans outside, like line of credit, car loans, credit card, etc., this is where you should look to consolidate them into a much lower interest rate loans. And during these times when interest rates are all rising, it is going to hit all your loans on average, so you should especially pay attention and start doing them if you haven't already. So usually the 2 biggest consolidation tools you can use is either a home equity line of credit on your house if you have one, or a personal line of credit from the bank. And at the end, there are 2 different types of loans that you want to do more research on or hold on before you consolidate them. The first one is government student loan, and the second one is any investment loan incurred for investment purpose that has a chance to generate income in general. You want to hold on to these 2 loans potentially because they're tax deductible on any interest you pay. So what you want to do first is factor in the tax saving, and then after taking away the tax saving, what is your actual interest rate on this loan? For example, if the interest rate on loan is 5% and your tax rate is 30%, well, after tax deduction, your real loan rate is actually 3.5%. So make sure you do some research first and see, after taking off the tax saving, is this still higher than the next best available loan that you could use to consolidate? It is very rare after you taking in the tax write-off, but sometimes it does happen and it's still worthwhile to consolidate afterwards. So do some research on them, but yeah, look to consolidate any high interest rate loan if you can. Now, second tip is going to be to check for mortgage extension. So if you have a mortgage right now, especially if you have multiple mortgages or multiple properties, you really need to pay attention to this. What you should do is to call your bank right now and just ask them, do you have the option to extend your mortgage back to the original amortization or even further beyond? So for example, if you start with a 25-year mortgage and now there's 17 years left, you want to call your bank and say, hey, could I extend it back to 25 years if I want to, or maybe even go beyond that and get a 30-year mortgage if I really want to? If so, what are the steps? Is there any penalties or fees involved? And what is the payment going to look like depending on different interest rate and different extension? Your bank should be able to give you kind of like a table to let you see different options and what is the final payment every month. Now, before you freak out and say, well, I don't want to extend my amortization, I don't want to go back to 25 or 30 year and do this all over again. You are not really extending because you're going to stick with it for 25 or 30 years. The key here is by letting yourself to re-extend your mortgage, you are stretching out your payments again and thus lowering your minimal monthly payment that you would have to make. So what you're trying to do here is, if you're fixed rate about to see a renewal or variable rate and either it's adjustable rate or hitting a trigger rate very soon, you want to know, in case the monthly payment jumps and you can't handle it anymore, what kind of options do you have for temporarily lower it, and then later on when interest rate is back down or you have a better income in a better situation, then you can look to prepay and pay more into your mortgage and push down the amortization again. Now, for the people that are okay with the cash flow so far, you don't see any issue with it, I would still recommend you call anyway just to know what your options are, because a lot of people go in and assume they can just extend, but some banks, like different banks have different rules, and some really don't let you extend, or they're very harsh before they let you re-extend again. You want to find out all your options first, just in case interest rate really go above what you can handle, or things happen, you get laid off. You want to know how far down you can push your monthly payment and create more wiggle room within your budget for the time being. Now, the third tip that you can consider to do is fix your mortgage rate. Personally, I'm not a fan of this right now, but it is still an option, so I still want to put it on the list. The reason I'm not a fan right now is because I feel like we're near peak interest rate, at least much closer to the peak compared to 6 to 9 months ago. So if you are locking in right now, all you're doing is pretty much prepaying the next 1 or 2 hikes that is about to come, and then trying to fix it there, lock in there, but you're still going to pay a much higher payment than what you're paying right now if you're on variable. This is more to do with your emotional or psychology. Like if you're feeling very stressed out, thinking about interest rate increase, any further increase, because it's going to really stress you out, then maybe it's time for you to fix it just so you don't need to think about it every day. And if you're going to fix it, then instead of doing a 5-year fix, I would probably suggest you think more towards the 1, 2, or 3 years, just so you have that flexibility to potentially renew in the middle. And if the interest rate is back down, then maybe you can refix it at a much lower rate or go back to a variable again. So that's something to keep in mind. But for now, if emotionally you're very stressed thinking about it, then just lock it in right away. All right, number 4, what you should consider is to deleverage over time. So here what you want to do is identify loans that are high interest rate or not tax deductible or both, and you work slowly over time to speed up the repayment process. Now, most obviously is if you have surplus cash flow every month, is instead of maybe investing, you can look to pay more into the loan to get it down faster, especially if the loan is closer to a renewal, for example, like a fixed rate mortgage, and you worry about a sudden jump in your payment when the rates renew again. Now, on the other hand, there is actually another thing you can consider, and it's called tax loss harvesting. So every year, if you have non-registered holding, what you can do at the end of the year is purposely sell some of your holdings to create a capital loss on purpose, which can be carried backwards up to 3 years to offset any capital gains you reported, or be carried forward indefinitely. Now, usually when you do tax loss harvesting, the point is to sell it on purpose and then buy something very similar in terms of holdings to continue investing. But if you're someone right now that are not very confident into the market, or you don't feel comfortable continue to invest, we're near the end of the year right now, it might be a good idea for you to trigger that cap loss on purpose, save some tax, have some money on hand, and then use that towards any of the high interest loan you have right now to really deleverage so you can help yourself with your cash flow. But this one is more personal, and like I said, it depends on your confidence to keep investing moving forward. So if you're not sure, then talk to your CPA, accountant, or financial planner to see if this is the best move and if it fits your risk tolerance. Now, 5th tip is going to be about budgeting. I know budgeting is something that I said many times, especially this year, but once again, I want to remind everyone that if you haven't done detailed budgeting, maybe for the last 3 to 6 months, now is a very good time to sit down and revisit your budget once again. Like I always suggest, I would say use your last 3 to 4 months of budget to kind of create, to see any patterns and maybe take an average, or make sure that you don't get skewed because of one-off payments or one-off purchases. And on top of that, if you worry about recession or cash flow or getting laid off, I would recommend you go through every category and make a note of what is essential and what is non-essential, and you can prepare to cut them if cash flow runs into an issue. With Christmas coming, we are probably going to expect to spend a lot more than usual during those months. Here is really also a good time for you to get smarter about your budget and really allocate a good amount that fits, that works with your finances, and not spend in the spur of the moment. So with Black Friday coming, for example, it might be a good time for you to start accumulating Christmas gift that you may have to give out in a month from now. On top of that, you can also check out for credit card points deal that you can spend if you are thinking about a Christmas getaway. So for example, I saw that Amex or A&A had a promotion. If you use 60k Amex points, you can book a round trip from Vancouver to Japan in business class. So for most people, that's very affordable in terms of points, and that may be something you want to look at if you are planning to travel anyway. All right, so moving on, my second last tip here would be about your emergency fund, which goes hand in hand with the last tip on budgeting. So after you've done your budgeting, you should have a good idea what is your minimal spending every month. What does that look like? I would highly encourage you here to have at least 3 to 6 months of cash equivalent to that kind of spending set aside in high interest saving account or a redeemable GIC. Do not invest this cash. This is going to come in very handy should you face recession and you see a layoff. No matter how safe your job is, you should always have at least 3 to 6 months of emergency cash. If you have no kids, then 3 to 6 is fine. If you have kids, then I would say more towards the 6 to 12. And if you're super worried about recession because your job is extra dangerous, then maybe consider even an 18 months of emergency cash set aside just in case things get very bad for you. Now, if you don't have anywhere close to the 3 to 6 even to start, don't worry, don't panic. You can work on this very slowly. Like I said, that's why you want to do your budget so you know how much money you can put aside. And for the time being, make sure you have enough personal line of credit or a home equity line of credit set aside just in case you need to dip into them. These should be your very last resort. Now, finally, my seventh tip would be to consider selling your restricted stock units or employer share purchase plan right away on vest date. Now, so usually I advise this anyway, regardless what happens to the market, but with volatility happening, quite a bit inside the market, this is especially important and you should really consider this. So for RSU, this is essentially free money that your company will give you. You don't need to pay anything for it as part of your compensation. You just will get about half of it deducted as tax upfront, but you will receive the other half. And for ESPP, you do have to pay money towards it to purchase these stocks, but generally you will get about a 10 to 15% of guaranteed discount on vest day. So if on vest day the stock is $100, then you would have spent $85 to buy it. So you lock in that 15% if you sell right away. Which is why I always advise on vest day, sell all of it, if not at least half of it, because you can always buy it back through your personal trading accounts. And if you have RSP or TFSA room, even better, you may be able to buy it inside them. So any future gains you don't need to be taxed on. Now, why I advise this is because you're essentially, like I said, locking in that free money from RSU or locking in that 10 to 15% discount right away from ESPP. Especially if you work in tech in a high, paying salary position, very quickly, maybe after a couple quarters, you might find yourself, your whole portfolio, now 60 to 80% is consistent of your own company stock because they just give you so much or you purchase so much over time. So this is more about risk management. And also with a potential recession coming, make sure you have more cash on hand and then you can decide again what you want to do with those cash. And maybe, like I said before, pay down some of your debt that you have on the side. All right, so at the end, I want to give you one more bonus. And this is more niche, and I only learned about this after working with several clients on this issue that we found in their contracts. My last tip would be to pay attention to promotions or new contracts that you would have to sign around these times. So around this time, it's almost Christmas, people are going to start doing performance review and the discussion of salary and maybe even a promotion may come up. Now, a promotion obviously is a very, very good thing, but you need to be very careful and not like overexcited and just sign whatever is sent your way, especially if it's going to be a brand new contract to reflect your new position. In here, I really advise you to read line by line very carefully on what is actually said inside your new contract. For example, are there any phrases that indicate you are re-entering a probation period where they can, let you go without cost during those times? Are you going to be signing on something that would severely reduce your severance package should they let you go? Or are you going to be giving up or signing on new RSU or ESPP that are a lot less favorable compared to before? The reason I brought this up is because I have worked with several clients where upon their new promotion this year, we look inside the contracts carefully and we really found one or two clauses that would put them in a much worse position should they sign it and then get fired very shortly after. Now, I'm not saying that's what the company is trying to do, but it is something in there and made us feel uncomfortable in terms of planning. So what we've done after is actually go back to the company, brought it up and negotiate to have them removed from the contract, just so we're not signing on to something that potentially can be harmful for us. So this is why I'm advising you to read very, very carefully. You should read carefully all the time, but especially during these times with recession around the corner, make sure you're not signing away a lot of the benefits that you used to have. All right, so that's everything I wanted to share today. If you like this video, make sure you hit the like button once. If you don't like them, make sure you hit the dislike button twice. Next one I want to hear from you is, do you have any tips or any advice for anyone that are facing, the ever increasing interest rate or a potential recession around the corner? If you have some advice that I haven't mentioned, make sure you let me know in the comment down below. And also, if you like these kind of videos, I do upload them 8:30 EST every Tuesday. Make sure you subscribe to the channel, click the bell button so you get all the notifications in the future. Alright, this is Jacky. I hope you found this interesting. I'll see you next video. Bye!